And we are joined today by Christopher Paul Stelling, who has a new album, Best of Luck. He's also playing tonight at the Mini Bar. The new record produced by Ben Harper, he refers to it as soulful folk. I don't know what I'd call the record because there are a bunch of different flavors on it. It's kind of, you know, we were talking right before we came in here. You're sort of all over the road.
The literal road.
Yeah.
The highway system? Yes.
Well, I was talking earlier when you were out of the room. I think you started touring, 17 years ago, 18 years ago,
No. 10
like,
years ago. 10 years ago.
10 years ago was when it really kicked in?
Yeah, I figured out a way to stop wandering around and figured out a way to make it pay for itself, and then just kind of translated that into I was bumming around before I was playing music with a schedule.
Right.
So to speak, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you, just to talk about your connection to Ben a little bit, was the very first time you met Ben when you were interviewing him at the Newport Folk Festival? Or
No.
How did it all come about?
No, I had actually toured with him a couple years before that. We had a mutual friend. I put out a record in 2015 called Labor Against Waste. The guy that wrote, this guy, John, who sort of sat down with me for a couple hours to write my bio for the release of the upcoming record. He was a writer. He had grown up with Ben, and over the course of interviewing me, we became friends. And then 6 months later, he was like, I'm still listening to that record, and I grew up with Ben Harper, and I'd like to send it to him. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, please, thanks. Yeah. I was hanging out in the parking lot in Austin, Texas. I was like, 6 months ago, it would have been, come on, let's go. Let's send it to him,
Yeah.
And that resulted in me going out and opening a bunch of tour dates for him.
Yeah, but it wasn't just any tour dates.
No, it was incredible tour dates, yeah.
I mean, he took you to the Beacon, the Ryman. He took you to Massey Hall.
Yes, he did. He did. And he took me to beautiful, beautiful rooms. And he took me to the kind of rooms that most people don't get to play ever. So that was incredible. And I got to realize that, I just got to see a little glimpse of some reassurance. There were fantastic shows, and it kind of gave me a shot of adrenaline or B12 and just kind of kept me going. You need that. It's hard. Driving around playing shows, hoping people are going to come. It's a lot of pressure on you every night.
Yeah.
Let alone making records and hoping people listen to them. I mean, the entire thing is just kind of like, what am I doing? You're kind of really it's a very vulnerable pursuit.
I thought you were super smart, though. Before you even went out with Ben, you booked another tour that went back to the same markets.
Oh, yeah.
Right on the heels.
Yeah, a month later, I turned around. So, some thousands, maybe probably 3,000 to 5,000 people. I could at least say, "Hey, I'm going to be back at at Dave's place on the corner bar. Come see me in a month."
Ben has been quoted as saying that you're as far as being a guitar player, you're like a John Fahey or possibly even a Leo Kottke, but that you can sing. And which is nice, but you actually think more along the lines of Dave Van Ronk as a guitar?
No, I agree with all of those things.
Yeah.
These are all things that fed me. I kind of had a sort of a proclivity for finger picking from a young age, and then just kind of maybe some older cats that kind of knew more than I did kind of pointed me in the way of certain musics that I might find encouraging.
So you actually fell in love with the guitar before, you had, before I would call sort of the big drive arrived. You were 11 years old. You wanted a guitar. Mm-hmm. And you asked your dad.
You read my bio.
I read it. I read many things.
Yeah. It's just a lifetime of playing guitar. Being a kid in musical theater and in the arts, doing some acting, doing everything. It's all cumulative. It's just all life experience.
Your dad didn't buy
Being a
you.
Boy Scout and not being afraid to sleep in the woods, these are important things if you want to be a singer-songwriter.
Your dad didn't buy you a guitar, though.
No, he got me a lawnmower.
Yeah,
He said, get your own guitar,
which you did.
which I did.
It was very admirable.
Yeah, and I learned how to fix lawnmowers, too.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a plan. They always say you should have a plan B.
Yeah. So then your world kind of changed with Kurt Cobain.
When I was like 13, yeah, Nirvana was a big influence on me. Sure. I didn't know we were going way back. All right, let's party. Yeah. Yep. That was important. Nirvana Unplugged, I think, came out when I was like 14. To see acoustic guitars played by rock stars, was really cool. I think to realize that acoustic guitars could be at least equally expressive, if not more expressive, was mind altering.
I think we've covered everything from John Fahey to Nirvana.
Yeah.
People who are listening are probably going, What does he sound like?
Let's play.
So maybe we should hear a song.
Yeah, sure.
Once you knew it all, you saw how much you had to learn. Thinking what's the use if it's all gonna burn? Of all these things I'm no longer concerned. If you give a little something, might get something in return. Oh, you told me all along. If only I'd listened before I got it wrong. Making your repairs, try to speak a little less. Nobody needs to know about the way you've been blessed. How long must you carry the ashes and the urns? If you give a little something, might get something in return. Oh, you told me all along. If only I'd listened before I got it wrong. When the time comes and the earth shakes, sunsets and the hand takes, ain't you all going to the same place? So why not take it slow? Guess there's nowhere left to go. Ain't we just lucky to be here and see what it is? Love and the chaos and the coincidence. Praying for the patience, for that trust you gotta earn. If you give a little something, might get something in return. If you give a little something, might get something in return. If you give a little something, might get something.
Something in Return from Christopher Paul Stelling live here in the Bridge Studios. The studio version is on Best of Luck, the new album. Christopher Paul Stelling appearing tonight at the mini bar.
It's a good thing you prepared me to tell me the audience wasn't going to clap, because that would have sounded icy.
For a while we had him do jazz hands.
Yeah, right. That would have been cute. Okay, next time, guys.
But the thing is, whenever they did it, then the artist would start laughing, and there was no apparent reason to people listening on the radio of why the artist was laughing. It made him sound psychotic. So we stopped
laugh.
that.
We should all laugh more.
Yeah.
We should all laugh more.
Yeah. Something in Return. We never ask for songs, but if I would have asked for a song off the album, that would have been the one.
Good, because it wasn't a single.
Yeah, I know, right? But you love playing that one live.
I do. I love playing that one live. It was funny, I think Ben wanted to call the album Something in Return and wanted that to be a single, and I personally he was right, and that song is actually just kind of about people being right and me kind of getting in my own way, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, Yeah,
that's great.
The prophecy hath come true many times.
So that guitar that you earned when you were like 11, 12 years old was an electric guitar. And, you're playing an acoustic for us up here. And, of course, the irony is that while you were jonesing for a guitar, there was one hanging in your grandmother's closet.
Mm-hmm. No, she just passed away at 93.
Oh, sorry for your loss.
That's okay. I was lucky to have a grandmother into my late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that old classical guitar. It was just kind of like from her uncle, from my grandmother's uncle, and I think he got it in Spain. It must have even been like Spanish American or World War One. It's a beautiful guitar. I still have it. Yeah.
Very
it's delicate
cool.
though. It doesn't leave the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guitar that you did pick up, it feels like there's this turning point in. A lot of people have referred to it as a pawn shop, but it was basically a music shop that also sold like used toasters. Is that about accurate?
It's not a pawn shop. It was just like, it's Daytona Beach, Florida. It's the early 90s. There's no Guitar Center or commercial anything. And so the guy that, it was just like a guy that like had a music shop, he worked at the liquor store in the evenings, and he ran his little, I don't know why, maybe to, maybe to fuel some other enterprises, but, this guy Lee, and he was good to me, man. He always gave me what I paid for him, and he always traded up, and, got me, he kind of got me into a decent guitar eventually, and, but yeah, he I guess whenever he had a blender or a toaster or a microwave laying around the house, he would kind of bring it in and mix it amongst the guitars. Yeah.
And this part of the story seems kind of fantastic to me. I wonder if I've got it right. But in your early creative life, your guitar playing and your poetry were really sort of like they were the Reese's peanut butter cup before the chocolate and the peanut butter had an accident. Like they just didn't cross.
I love Reese's peanut butter cups. It's so funny you would bring those up. It's really the best candy. But now that it's gone to like a boutique level of like Newman's Own dark chocolate peanut butter cups, or like the Trader Joe's. You guys got a Trader Joe's, the dark chocolate peanut butter cups at Trader Joe's. Pop a bag of those. She's like, this lady right here is like, absolutely. Do you put them in the freezer? I put them in there cold. Right? This is a thing. This is like humanity.
And this is why I do research.
Humanity has reached a new level, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my music. I want to be the Trader Joe's dark chocolate peanut butter cup. It used to be the Reese's, but now I'm trying to refine my taste a little bit and maybe get in the freezer.
Well, that's what we're interested in.
Keep it ice cold.
Growth in our artists.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to see you take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
So
Best way to say it.
The acoustic guitar, is that sort of a catalyst for bringing the poetry and the music together?
No, that was just necessity, really. Like it's good to break things apart and explode a situation and kind of refine the parts of it, and when you put it back together, hopefully it's a little stronger. I think that's the idea. You know, like words often have to be compromised to fit into song, to fit into music. The music often needs to be compromised to make room for words, you know. I mean, jazz is a primary genre example. Like, you know, a jazz standard with words is often much less involved musically than just a instrumental piece, right? So it's kind of finding that place where words and music, for me personally, can intersect and still just either one doesn't have to bore me.
And at the end of, you know, the discussion, you know, you're so well known as being a great guitar player, but you want the songs to be the thing that carry the day.
Yeah, I don't know about, well, I'll get back to you on so well known, but I'm here working on it. You know, the song should be the thing.
Yeah.
And so personal exercises in writing simpler songs, you know, like I've had songs in the past that were very wordy, very involved. And I think I've just kind of just learned a process of self-editing, hopefully. That,
you know, it's funny you say that
now.
Because there's another song on the album that's really beautiful, Lucky Stars.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to play for you next.
Well, that's a great intro then. When I was listening to it, I was taken with how beautiful it is.
Thank you.
And then as I was listening to it, I thought, I wonder how hard it is for him to be this simple in the playing and this direct and simple in the lyrics.
Right. That becomes the new challenge in some ways, you know. I like an art form that is constantly proving to best you. You know, it's you never win at this game. You just keep playing is the thing, right? Yeah.
Well, we'd love for you to keep playing. Christopher Paul Stelling, our guest, new album, Best of Luck, live in the Bridge Studios.
Thank my lucky stars, never let me down. Hang up in the sky, keep me on the ground. Thank my lucky stars, whisper do not be afraid, reflecting what we are, the waters that we stars. Thank my lucky stars. Look after all you do, just because they're mine. Yours too. Oh, thank my lucky stars. Thank my lucky stars. Poke holes in the dark, maybe far away, they still hold the spark. Oh, thank my
Christopher Paul Stelling live in the Bridge Studios. That is Lucky Stars, which is one of the cuts from his new album, Best of Luck, which is produced by Ben Harper. Ben played pedal steel on that one?
He did. He played lap steel.
Lap steel?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you get a chance, go online and find the video for that. It's like, I'm a Hopeless Romantic, and that's about the most romantic video.
Really?
Yeah, I love that video.
Thank you. Me too. It's a nice portrait of my wife and I, and at the state fair outside of Asheville. And you know what the funny may I give you a little anecdote
absolutely.
about the realization that I had about that video is that I lived in New York City for 10 years. That's where we met, and I moved to New York City from Asheville, North Carolina. I was there not for too long, you know. It was part of but that was the place where I got the sort of first guitar that I would grind into dust, and I took that to New York City and kind of started washing dishes and playing in the subways and eventually playing on stages, and eventually from there it was the jumping point to start touring, and you know, per request or not, I was going. You know what I mean? There wasn't necessarily a demand for it, in that, except for that I demanded to be doing this and not washing dishes. Which there's nothing wrong with washing dishes, but you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But the video, you know, in New York City and Los Angeles and all of these places, like you couldn't show up with a 3-camera crew, you know, with people to shoot a music video at the carnival. You know what I mean? You can't just walk in with these devices. Like somebody would stop you and say, "Do you have a permit? What are you doing?" But you know, the beauty of living in you know, more rural parts of North Carolina is we just show up and we're like, "Can we do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, come on in." No big deal. So we got equivalent of like, you know, a multi-million-dollar, what would have been required a serious budget.
Right.
You know, all these antique carnival rides and Ferris wheels and bumper cars and all these things. And we're just walking around with cameras.
And the lovely thing is, and I wasn't going to ask, I wasn't going to pry, but I just was assuming that it was your real partner, because you know you see all these videos.
If it wasn't, my real partner would have been pissed.
You know, you see these videos where they've hired some model to come in to be, and you can't make that real. You can't make that real.
No.
You know, you can actually, it's that rare music video where you can see the love. It's kind of great.
Yeah,
right?
she's in the business too, so it wasn't a hard sell. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, she plays with me, and she was we were on TV last week. What was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? On CBS This Morning.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And she sings with me she's in the band when there's a band.
So speaking of human moments, you also spent some time in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
And you found one of those pieces of paper with the little pull tabs where you take the numbers off.
Yeah.
For a gentleman named Ron Oates.
Yeah.
And he has built mandolins for people like Tony Furtado and String Cheese Incident. And you became something in his life as a result of that contact, right? I mean,
He taught me how to build guitars, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do. So I became like a sort of an apprentice to him, and more of a student to him really than an apprentice. I mean, he was working on his stuff, and I was over there in the corner trying not to cut my fingers off, you know, and literally. And yeah, it was a good time in my life. That was a weird time. That was a healing time in my life. Just like, you know, at that young age, just to say you were going to do something and actually do it can be a very powerful thing. Some people do it with college, or some people do it with just to do something, because, you know, few of us have arrived sort of into the person we're going to be at that young age, but one needs the confidence to
So the
finish
interesting
something.
part about this all to me is that, like, my brother-in-law has, you know, remodeled multiple houses, but he has not fixed the stairwell in his own house for the better part of a decade.
Right.
And you talked about having a guitar that you ground to dust. and you worked with this guy for a couple of years, but your own guitar featured super glue, electrical tape, nails, staples.
Yeah, I
Am
learned all the
leaving anything
best.
out?
I learned all the best ways to keep it together. You know.
Yeah. I kind of wondered what that was. It kind of made me think of maybe it was like when you get a car, and the car is the car. I love it when an artist tells me to stay on mic. But you get a car and it's like, oh no, I don't want that first ding.
Yeah.
And then fast forward like 6 years on down the road, and you're underneath the car with a wire hanger trying to keep the bumper on, you know. And I wondered if that was like that with that guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just you kind of, I don't know. I built some guitars. I learned you learn how to repair guitars. You know, you learn how to keep them together. And you just learn not to be scared to try to fix something. I think that's the moral of the story. Whether you need to glue a popsicle stick to it, or whether you need to
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, or if you need to just use to cleat. If you're on the road, everybody knows, if you know about guitar repair, you put a cleat on the inside of a crack, on the inside, like a piece of wood with the grains opposing, going the other direction. And sometimes you just need to make one of those out of a popsicle stick and fix a crack on the road before it becomes more of a problem.
Yeah.
If you want to play nice guitars that are old guitars, you got to know how to fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've mentioned the fact that you've toured pretty relentlessly over the years.
Yeah.
And around Christmas time, 2018, you were really hitting a wall. Went home, and on Christmas Day, you decided to quit drinking. And
I replaced it with a lot of coffee.
yeah, I can attest.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a tough time, but you had an instance of near instant karma because you quit drinking on Christmas Day. You're trying to put some things together, and then Ben Harper reaches out on New Year's Day.
Yeah, I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years. I mean, we send little emails every once in a while and say, hey. But, I'd been on my tours and he had been on his tours, which are vastly different things. And I was just done. I knew that I would die if I just kept drinking and touring and drinking. And it's just whatever. I had some of the best times of my life drinking a couple bottles of wine, running around, weird medieval streets in Italy at 3 a.m. after shows, like I'm talking about specific things. And, it was just time. It was just time to try a new headspace. And it probably had a lot to do with what was happening sort of, for the sake of maintaining, being a little obscure on this, like let's just say events happening in the world that were depressing me. I just had to make a change.
So when Ben reached out to you, he reached out for a very specific reason. He came to you wanting to produce your next record.
Well, he said he's been known to produce records, and if I'd like to go into the studio, he'd be down.
So you didn't respond to him right away.
No, I freaked out. I didn't have songs. I ran home and talked to, called a couple friends and was like, what am I going to do?
Well, you'd always been a lone wolf, right? You'd never had a producer before.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, and it meant a lot more for me necessarily than like to be completely. Why not? Let's just be completely honest on the radio. To be completely honest, there probably wouldn't have been another record by me issued by the record label that I was on had he not stepped up to produce the record. His affiliation with it kept me going because, for all intents and purposes, I'm a relative failure in the music business. I don't sell enough records. I don't sell enough tickets to the majority of people who operate in the business to maintain any sort of career but I am determined. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
I still
and
tour half the world, but it's to numbers that for a lot of people are scratching their head saying, well, you know, the industry is fickle, and not to get too dark on it, but I can get dark on it because I've become determined to not let that dissuade me.
Well, and I think that everybody who's listening already gets this. But the other thing is, I know that you yourself, yes, the business can judge things however they choose to judge things, but that is not how you judge what you do. You are in the business of touching people and moving people with what you do.
Right. Ben didn't want to work with me because I sell a ton of records or I sell a ton of tickets or I'm a household name. He liked my music and to a certain degree really just wanted to help me out, like, as a person, and did.
Right.
And showed up, and then beyond that was able to contribute musically and as a producer and a force in the studio and a motivating force, because that's truly what a producer is to me personally, is a motivating force, someone that makes the project happen, you know? So
you started writing. You did a little residency, writing residency, but kept writing past that. And you were sending songs as they came out of you to Ben, 35 songs altogether. And Ben ended up being the one that chose, you had to let go, right? I mean, Ben chose the songs?
I wrote the songs.
You wrote them, but
I wrote the
chose...
songs, and then, you know, I could have strong opinions on, I mean, look, I mean,
Yeah.
about half of the songs, we completely agreed that these are the songs.
Yeah.
And about the other half, you know, there was some other people in the proverbial room that the hard thing with making an album, I don't really think, I mean, very few people listen to albums anymore, right? I mean, from
Yeah.
beginning to end as a journey. I still like that. But there's usually like 5 songs that you think, okay, these are going on the album. And then there's another 5 songs that kind of connect the dots on the map, right? And then they kind of decide where it goes. And they kind of fill in the dialogue. And they kind of represent the story and the arcing of the story. You know, they connect the dots between, like, let's say the 5 obvious songs.
Right.
And so you can go any given direction. Like, I made a record that had a lot of beautiful ballads, but I chose to put like a raucous song up front. And people whose job is it to kind of have conversations like this immediately assumed that I had made a more raucous album. Right?
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people really dig in. I appreciate when they do. I appreciate when they don't. I'm glad they're doing anything at all.
Yeah. So you're wearing a shirt today from the shop that Ben Harper grew up in. His grandparents actually had a music shop, legendary shop. And I would imagine that Ben probably could have a garage sale that equals everything that's in the shop. He's probably got gear.
He's got a few guitars.
Yeah. And being in a studio space, long way from your first record that was recorded in a funeral home.
I did record my first record in a funeral home.
A working funeral home.
Yeah. Day rates are cheap.
I'm sure there's a whole story there.
Yeah.
That one just dropped and there's just like no explanation whatsoever on that one.
Well, it was a family business of the engineer. He built his, they, for some reason they couldn't rent the apartment upstairs.
For some reason.
So he built his recording studio up there. And, you know.
What was it like working with Ben?
Intense.
Yeah, he's intense.
He's intense. Intense. Fun. All the things. Do you know what I mean? Like a record, the process of making a record should contain all of the things. And, not to equate it to something as epic as, like service people who have been to war historically have said there's never a bond created much like the bond created in those types of situations, and the closest thing I've ever experienced is the creative process, which can very much feel like war, and the highs are the highest, the lows are the lowest, and they can all happen in the span of 15 minutes.
For just to put a cap on that part of it, Ben's on record as saying that of all the records he's produced, this is his favorite.
No, I think he said one of his favorites. I don't.
He said he's the one he's most proud of.
It's one he's most proud of. See, it's all in how you say it. It's one he's most proud
I'm
of.
going to go back and look at this quote again.
I think it's a very carefully worded quote. I think it's I don't know. I'm honored to have
You're
worked with him.
too humble too.
Well, I'm also a jerk, so it's okay. You know,
You're being nice today, so
like
that
I said,
later
you got to
on-
be a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a lot of things at the gig tonight at the
at Minibar.
at Minibar. Stir it around.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Minibar 9:00.
sounds
Vanity
good.
Plates opens up, and is that right? Yep, Vanity Plates opens up 9:00. I'll hit around 10:00. It's late, but you can do it. You can hang in there.
And I'm sure
I won't
you'll-
get you too drunk because I'm not drinking.
There you
So
go.
no excuses, guys. Come on out to the show.
And I'm sure you'll have copies of Best of Luck at the merch table as well.
Yeah.
Christopher Paul Stelling is our guest. We'd love one more song if we could. Christopher Paul Stelling, our guest today, playing live here at the Bridge. The new album is called Best of Luck, and he is taking the stage tonight at the Mini Bar. Really appreciate you coming in. I know it's not easy on the road, and for you to come in and give us your time and a performance like this.
I really appreciate you having me. It's really easy to come in to do this. It's much better than sitting in a parking lot somewhere waiting on the club to open. So,
well, best part of our day so far, only to be capped by tonight.
You got coffee and everything, man.
Coffee and everything.
Thank you for the conversation. It was
Yeah,
nice.
absolutely. And again, just want to really, put my stamp of approval for whatever that means on the new album, Best of Luck. Christopher Paul Stelling, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody.